Because I have a feeling this one is a little more, has more than the first training. Okay, so what's the Pareto Principle? Let's talk about that real quick. That's the 80-20 rule that basically tells us that 80% of your actions are going to lead to 20% of your results, and vice versa. 20% of your actions are going to lead to the other 80%. So in your life, or in your real estate life, you want to focus on what's that 20% of actions that I can do that's going to lead to 80% of my results. And we've broken that down into 5 key areas. Number one, like we talked about before, is lead generation. Your business begins with lead generation. If you can't generate a lead, you're never going to be in business. It doesn't matter how much business equipment you have. It doesn't matter how nice your business plan is. It doesn't matter how much money you've invested into this thing. If you can't generate a lead, you're never in business. Second part, like I say, this is where I think most people drop the ball, is going to be lead follow-up. This is something that people struggle with over and over and over. Sometimes they do better than others. Hopefully by the end of this, we can help clarify some systems for you to make your lead follow-up a little bit better. Next slide. All right. Does anybody have, so if you were here last week, or even if you weren't here last week, does anybody have any questions about last week's training? This is a recap on it, but, we talked about sweat equity versus checkbook equity. We went over all the different lead generation types, but do you guys have any questions about last week's training? Do you guys have any thoughts, anything to add, any opinions? Nope, nothing. All right, bunch of experts. I'm excited. All right, next slide, please. So you guys won't mind if I just talk the entire time.
Not at all.
Very good at doing that, so I have a lot to say. I'll try.
Take it away, Joe.
I'll try to stay on task here. I'll try to keep the topic strictly lead follow-up. So number 2, right? Number 1, lead generation. Number 2, lead follow-up. This is a cliche saying, right? But what do we know about cliche saying, right? We know that they're there for a reason, right? If there wasn't some truth to these things, then it wouldn't catch on, right? The sky is green, right? Well, usually it's not, right? So that's never going to catch on, right? But if you're telling a truth, it's going to catch on, whether it's cliche or not, whether you love hearing it or not. You can go ahead. You can keep advancing the slides. So, all right, what are we going to ask ourselves? All right, does anybody know the answer to this? Does anybody know how many times we should follow up with a lead before we give up on them? Like, a lead came in, you called them day 1, maybe you called them day 2, maybe you called them day 3. At what day do you give up on a lead, right? At what point do you stop trying to contact them? Or at what point? Go ahead, Lorna.
When you die.
That's it. That is 100% it. You follow up with a lead until they buy or one of you dies, right? Or until they sell and one of you dies. You follow up with a lead in perpetuity, right? That's a real estate term for basically it goes on forever. Next slide. So let's give a little example here, right? I don't know if you guys have read this book. I apologize. I've never read it. I feel like in the back where they talk about the book and just the name of the book, it's called 3 Feet from Gold or something like that. I've never read it because I feel like just reading the title, I know what it is, right? Basically, it tells a story about a farmer who owned a field, and his whole life, he was digging that field up, right? He dug different holes everywhere, he knew there was gold on his field. There was no question, no doubt in his mind that there was gold in his field, right? So every day, all he did, he knew there was a jackpot somewhere in his field. He dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug and dug. 30 years go by, 40 years go by, all these years go by, and finally, what did he do? He gave up, right? He gave up. There's no gold to be had in this land. There should be gold, right? It seems like there's gold. I've done the soil sampling. There should be gold, but there's no gold. So what did he do? He sold his property, right? Sold the property. Next buyer comes in, believes the same thing, right? Picks up where that farmer left off, digs 3 feet, hits gold, right? Well, that's exactly what happens to us when we're in our lead prospecting, lead follow-up cycle, right? We call somebody one time, we have a good conversation with them. Yeah, I'm going to sell, but I'm not ready to sell. right? There's your gold. You know there's gold there, right? But you got to keep digging. You know, why are you selling? Where are you going to move when you sell? What about that is important to you, right? You got to get these key points, right? But you have to keep digging. You have to keep digging until finally you strike gold. And if you don't, you're going to be like the farmer that sold his land. Another real estate agent's going to come along and they're going to strike gold where you did all that digging. You did all the preparing. You helped them get everything ready, but you failed in your follow-up game. You stopped digging, right? Next slide. So what's the progression of a sale? Or what's the progression of a phone call, right? At what point do agents most likely give up, right? So these are statistics that I don't know who did this. Might have been National Association of Realtors. I don't really know, but they run the statistics and the numbers on how many times the average agent follows up, and then where is this individual in that cycle, right? So you see, number one, 43% fall off. Number two, another 68. Number three, another 80. Number four, it usually takes for your easiest leads, your low-hanging fruit, the people that are ready to buy, ready to sell. They've already started those actions that they need to start in order to be prepared to do these things. Still takes 4 contacts, right? It takes 4 follow-ups to get through to them, right? If by 4 they're not, then number 5, now you know them, right? Number 6, everybody else is giving up. And number 7 on, right? Now you're the person of their choice. But it takes 7 contacts to be that agent of their choice. Does that mean after 7 you give up? No, unless they die, right? But after number 7, they are your customer to lose. They are definitely your customer to lose. So you have to follow up, follow up, follow up. And what you'll find as you're following up is most agents aren't following up like you. Next slide. Follow up. So what are your steps for an effective follow-up plan, right? What things should you be doing in order to make sure that you're doing an effective follow-up? Number 1, you need a calendar. You need a schedule. Number 1, if you're not working off of a calendar, if you're not working off of a schedule, then you're living life too fast and too free, right? You need to have a calendar. You need to have systems. You need to have it color-coded. And this calendar, this schedule, this system needs to tell you when you're going to take these actions, right? Or if you have a CRM, it's going to do some of these actions for you automatically. Next slide. So what are we trying to follow up with? What are we trying to do in our follow-up system, right? There's a few things that we're going to do when we're following up with people. Number 1, see Will Smith? He's making phone calls. Even Will Smith makes phone calls. So what does that say? We should be making phone calls, right? That is your best, easiest way to build a connection with somebody is through phone calls, right? Another form of communication, very super passive, email, right? They might open your email, they might not, it might go to spam, it might not get delivered, they might not have given you their right email address, right? But you should always have email in your follow-up system. And number 3 is your text messages, right? If they don't answer your phone, you call them 4 times, but you never texted them, you might be missing an opportunity, right? A lot of people don't want to talk on the phone, right? These days especially, they won't even call their own mom, but if their mom texts them, they're going to respond back to that text message. So you're going to call, you need a system for calling, you need a system for emailing, you need a system for text messaging, right? And you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. You only need one system, right? One for buyer, one system for sellers, right? So how should you do this? Should you call them 5 times a day, every day? Should you flood their emails with every day? Should you send them text messages after text message after text message? Should you call them if they're not on a do not call list? Well, these little red things here, they tell you, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, have a plan. We use Sierra Interactive and Mojo Sells personally for ourselves. And on the left, this is the name of just some of the campaigns that we have that we do, on our team, right? 10 days of pain. That's 10 days of literal pain, right? That's where you're very aggressive because in the first 10 days, that's going to be your highest likelihood that person is ready because the nearest to when they put that contact into whatever system it is that you did to generate that lead, right? 33 touch, that's a longer ways out, right? 8x8, you know, whatever it is, fearless agent, 8x8. There's a million different follow-up plans. It doesn't really matter which one you do as long as it's appropriate to whatever category this buyer or seller is in. But you must have a follow-up plan, right? What's the other cliche saying, right? Fail to plan, you plan to fail. You're gonna fail every time. You're not organized. You're not organized. You're gonna call people when you feel like it. You're gonna email them when you feel like it. Sometimes you're gonna get to a lead that you know you should follow up with, but it's never like a great phone call, so you skip it, and you skip it, and you skip it. Until 9 months later, you finally get the guts to call them, and then you find out that they already sold their property. They listed it 3 months ago. It happens. It's happened to me. Believe me. Next slide. So with calling, how do we handle the phone calls, right? So when you're on the phone with somebody, you have 5 objectives. This is really, really important, right? So this is high level training right here. A lot of this is basic, standard, you know, whatever. This right here, not everybody gets this. It took me years to get this, to figure out when I'm on a sales call with somebody, what are my objections, right? This is your 20% of your 20%, right? We talked about the 64-4 rule, right? The 20% of your 20%. This is your 4%. Number one, when you're on a call, you always need to close for the appointment. Whatever that appointment is, whether it's a listing appointment, somebody called you about a property that you have for sale, to go show that appointment. If they call you about a property for sale, do you screen them? Are you pre-qualified? Are you cash? Do you have a lender? No. You meet them at the appointment. You close for the appointment. You can screen them when you get in their face, right? You can find out if they're pre-qualified. You can find out if they're, you know, cash buyer when you're face-to-face with them and they see that you're actually a real human being, right? When they humanize you and you're not just a voice at the other end of the phone, right? Always close for the appointment. If you're not closing for the appointment, then what are you doing, right? If you're not asking for an appointment, then why are you calling them? Always, always, always close for the appointment, right? Number 2, you can't get the appointment. They're not ready, right? 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever, wherever they're at. Is it okay if I follow up with you? It sounds like you're not ready to sell just yet, Mr. Seller. I think you're waiting for your son to go to college down in Texas in 9 months. Is it okay if I give you a call back in about 5 or 6 months just to see how that's going? Sure, you can call me back. Why would they not? Right? They're already talking to you. If they're going to sell, you have what they need, right? You have the knowledge and the know-how on how to sell it, right? Get permission to follow up. And when they say they're selling in 9 months, you better call them back in 6 months. If they say they're selling in 6 months, you better call them back in 3 months. If they're selling in 3 months, you better call them back in a month. Because the last thing you want to do is call them in 90 days when they say 90 days and, oh no, we just listed it a week ago. Right? Well, that was 83 days, dude. It wasn't 90 days, right? You need to call them before they're going to take that action or before. Can I call you in 6 weeks? Sure. Call them in 4. They didn't write it on their calendar. They don't know. But you need to be there when they're ready. You don't want them to call. You don't want to call them and say, "Oh, I was waiting for you to call. I lost your contact information. You know, this circumstance changed really fast, and we just had to go." And you lost the sale. You were 3 feet from gold, right? You sold the land. Number 3, in this call, you need to make a connection. Everybody has something in common with somebody. Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you have kids. Oh, I have kids too. Maybe you have a spouse. Oh, I have a spouse too. Maybe you like cars. Oh, I like cars too. Right? Everybody has something in common with somebody. And how do you build a relationship with somebody? Right? You have to have something in common with them. Make that connection. Right? Listen to them. Hear what they're saying. Dig deeper, right? Because we're mining for gold, we're digging for gold. Dig deeper, right? Tell me more about that. Right? Why is that important to you? Right? Get that connection. Get them talking. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Why? Because you should listen twice as long as you speak. Right? So make that connection. Right? Number 4, while you're making that connection, get a key piece of information. And why is it important to get a key piece of information? Because on your first call or your second call, they don't know you. They don't know who you are. right? If they're an expired lead, right? Well, there's 150 agents that are calling them every day for the first probably 2 weeks. They hate everybody, right? But as time goes out and as the follow-up progresses, less and less agents are following up with them, right? But they still don't remember you because they spoke to 150 different agents. So you need that key piece of information that you can jog their memory. Mr. Seller, hey, this is Joseph Miranda with Miranda Executive Realty. We spoke about 6 weeks ago about you potentially selling your house. You were telling me that you were waiting for your son to go to college down in Texas. And I just wanted to call and follow up, see how things are going with that, right? Now he knows that I'm a valid follow-up person. He might remember that conversation because he didn't tell every single agent that his son was going to college down in Texas in 6 weeks, right? He told me and maybe 5 other agents that actually cared, right? Because most agents, hey, this is Joe with such and such realty. I see your property expired. Do you want to list it again? No? Okay, click, right? They never follow up, right? Like they just don't. Most don't. Most don't. And number 5, you need to make sure you have a valid email address. Why? Because if you go back 4 slides, it tells us that one of our follow-up systems is email, right? And if you ever call them and they say, don't call me again, well, you can still email them, right? So you can still continue. Maybe you caught them on a bad day, right? Don't call them. They tell you don't call them again. Still email them. They'll drop a mail to into their inbox. Next slide. Does anybody have any questions or comments so far? Anybody have anything to add? Am I missing anything? Am I wrong about anything?
Oh.
No? All right. Next slide, please. All right. ACW. What is an ACW? After call work. What do you do after the call? You just had a great conversation with this person. Call me back in 6 weeks. Right? Well, number 1. Okay, so we're going to get to CRMs, right? Contact relation managers. All of that's going to happen in here. So we use Sierra Interactive. It's amazing. It does anything you could ever want Sierra Interactive to do. But just like any computer, just like anything, my daughter was driving my truck yesterday. She drove my truck for the first time, and she goes, this truck drives weird. And I said, no, honey, it's not the truck, it's you, right? The truck is dumb. The truck has no intelligence. The truck does exactly what you tell it to do. You hit the gas, it gives you gas. You hit the brakes, it should slow down, right? You turn it off, well, it should turn off. Put it in reverse, it should go backwards, right? Standard, turn the wheel, it should turn. It's doing exactly what you're telling it to do in its own way, right? So everything's going to be a little bit different, but it does exactly what you tell it to do. Well, that's your CRM. It's going to do exactly what you tell it to do. So when you finish your call, you need to go back into your CRM and you need to figure out, what do I need to do? Well, number 1, to me, number 1 is make your notes, right? To me, you make your notes. Now, how do you make your notes, right? What if you're talking to a husband and a wife at the same time, right? What if you call the husband one day and then you call the wife and then the husband and the wife and the wife and the wife and the wife and the husband and the husband and the husband. At some point, you might take that key piece of information and look like a liar. No, don't you remember? You told me that your son's moving. I never told you that. Crap. Who told me that? Oh, it was your wife, right? He or she, right? Well, they or them if you want, I guess. I don't know. I haven't run into that in the call yet. But Mr. or Mrs., this way you'll know. Hey, Mr. Smith, this is Joseph Miranda with Miranda Executive Realty. We spoke a few times previously. Actually, the last time that I called, I was speaking with your wife, Mrs. Smith, and she had told me this. I was just calling to follow up on that and see how things are going with that. Okay, great, right? Now your notes, Mr., Mrs. Put the gender in front of your notes. So you know if you spoke to the husband or the wife, the brother, the sister, right? Whatever it is, make your job just a little bit easier when you're calling for the follow-ups. Right, Mr., Mrs., whatever, right? So you got your notes in there. What else do you need to do? Update your label, right? So there's labels over here to the left. You see where it says new, it's yellow. If we click in here, it's going to give you a drop-down. All of these, and we have a cheat sheet for this in Trello, right? It's going to tell you actually have my cheat sheet right here. Sorry, my desk is up because I'm standing right now. But it's going to tell you, okay, well, new, they're not in the system yet. You haven't contacted them. Qualified, they're 180 to 365 days out. Active, 91 to 180 days out. Prime, 0 to 90 days out. You call them and you're following up. You already know because you see colors, right? You know where they're at. Oh, they're not yellow, they're orange. They're getting close, right? You don't want them in red. That means they don't like you. That's okay. It happens to all of us. All right. So you updated your label with their new time frame, with where they're at. What's the next thing you're gonna? Oh, there it is, right there. Yeah, that's in Trello. If you guys want it, you guys can grab that, print it out, use it in Trello whenever you want to use it. So these are the labels. You can label them however you want. Some go A, B, C, D. Right. My A leads are most likely to close in the next 30 days. My B leads are going to be 90 days out. C leads are 180. D leads are a year or more. F leads don't want me to talk to them no more. Right? It doesn't matter, but you need a system. This is our system. Right? If you want our system, we're going to give you our system. It's all in Trello. It's all there for everybody to have. Right? If you get overwhelmed with our system, you know how to contact us. Next slide. Right? So just keep these things in mind. So after you've done the labels, if you've updated your labels, you need to update your tags. Why are tags important? Right? Tags tell you what the profile of this individual is. A tag, you know, we get a lead from Google pay-per-click. Well, the tag tells us that that lead came from Google pay-per-click, right? Maybe one day we decide, okay, you know what? I'm going to call all my leads that came in from Google pay-per-click that I've only reached out to one time, right? So you filter the tag, you filter through that tag, and then that tag, and then you put only called one time, and it makes you call. Is the screen stuck, Irene? I think maybe yes. Okay, here we go. We're moving again. All right, so we've created our tag, right? So we've updated the label. We've created the tag, right? We've taken off any tags that we don't have. We've added any tags that need to be there. Now we need to put them into an action plan, right? Because we don't have time to sit down every day, every week, every other day and send them an email. Well, that's why we go in and we've created fully automated action plans. These actions are fully automated. They don't require you to do anything ever. These don't even require a phone call, right? Our drip campaigns add in phone calls. Our action plans, text and email only. Set it and forget it. I don't want to call this person anymore. They said they might never be selling. I'm just going to drop them in something so that they just keep getting emails from me, right? You're going to put them in there. We got a lot, right? You want the system, it's yours, right? Let us know. What do you want? We give it to you, right? It took us years to build these things. Like this is all built out by us, right? Action plan, drip campaign, right? Now drip campaign's a little bit, it's similar to an action plan, but it's probably going to require you to do something because it's not going to be fully automated. You know, and this is where it's going to tell you to call somebody. This is where it's going to tell you to, you know, send them a CMA, right? This is where it's going to tell you to actually go in and go do things, right? This is really important because this is going to remind you to call, right? This is going to remind you to do the things that you need to do. So you've done that. I feel like there's one more thing here. The e-alerts. If your CRM has it, right? We love these. They're e-alerts. We can automatically email them properties that are within their criteria, right? It's just automatically going to send it to them. And then they go into your website, to your CRM. You're going to get an email. You know, John Smith just made an inquiry on, 3200 North Port Royale Drive, number 409. You call up John Smith. Hey, John Smith, I just saw you were looking at 3200 North Port Royale Drive, number 409. Did you want to go look at it? No, because now you look creepy. John Smith ain't going to go there nowhere because people don't want you knowing their every move. You got to be slick about it. Just follow up with John Smith. Hey, John, this is Joe Miranda. Just calling to follow up with you. Been looking at properties. You see anything you like? Oh, as a matter of fact, I was just on your website. Really? I didn't know. Wow, what a coincidence that I'm calling you now, right? What a coincidence, right? But this is going to tell you, you want them looking for properties on your website. And you see, we have them all, right? Well, the only two you need. Miami Association of Realtors and Beaches. You don't need no other MLS. You don't need no other listings, right? That'll take you all the way up Port St. Lucie and beyond. So all the MLS you need, we got them both. So you're good there. All right, let's move on. What's the next slide here? All right, so those are the things that you're going to do. Text messaging, we did talk about that. But when you're texting, let's go back one. Oh yeah, you can leave them here. So people don't always answer the phone, but they do respond to your text messages. But you want to send certain types of text messages. Hey, John, you want to sell your house? Hey, John, you ready to sell your house? You going to sell? You going to sell? No, man, because you're going to have commission breath, right? Joe's only calling me until I get a sale. He won't follow up with me after the sale, right? Well, if you did a good job in the calls, if you did speak with them, maybe you made a connection, right? But if you can't, make a connection in a text message, right? Personalize it. Use their name, right? What's everybody's favorite word in the whole language? Any language, doesn't matter. It's their own name, right? I'm sitting in a restaurant and somebody says Joe, my ears perk up. I hear it. You say Lisa, I don't know. I didn't hear it. I don't know what you're saying, right? But if Lisa hears Lisa, her ears are going to perk up, right? It's her favorite word in any language, right? Your name is your favorite word. Use their name when you're speaking to them, not just in text. When you're speaking to them, hey John, I understand what you're saying here, but I understand what you're saying here, and doesn't matter. Use their name. Use it. I really appreciate you saying that, John. That means a lot, right? Use the name. Number 2, create engaging content. Engaging can be whatever that means to you. We do funny stuff. We send memes, right? We send text message memes that are sad face. We've texted you 4 times and you're not responding. Why aren't you responding? Right? Like, we send funny stuff to people. Why? Because people like to laugh, right? We send emotional stuff to people, right? It doesn't have to just be, hi, John, I saw you looked at my 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Port Royale. Do you want to go take a look at it? It doesn't have to be that, right? Now, that maybe the professional needs to be mixed in, but you need engaging content. And don't write a novel. Enough said there, right? If I talk too much about that, I'll be speaking a novel. Provide value. Right? What's everybody's favorite radio station? WIIFM. What's in it for me? Right? If your text message, your calls, your emails are all about you, I'm the greatest agent in the world. #1 agent. Sold 500 houses last year. Top team. #1 in Florida. Nobody cares, right? They kind of care. But if you're not bringing value to them, they're going to go to the agent that gives them value, right? We've beaten out plenty of agents. We've beaten out plenty of teams. We've beaten out plenty of companies that sell way more real estate than us because we provide value at every turn. You put me in a house with somebody, they're going to get so much value, they're going to feel guilty that they didn't use me because we come from contribution, right? Look, you might not use me. You might end up listing your house with somebody else. And that's okay, but I still want you to know this. Because no matter who you list your house with, you need to know this, right? You need to hear this. You need to know, right? Avoid that pitfall. And then a call to action. What's a call to action, right? Call me now. Click this link. Go here, right? Request a showing. Call your mom. It doesn't matter what it is, but you need to tell them to do something, right? Hey, John, here's a cute emoji. You haven't been answering our calls. Won't you please call us back? Right? You have to tell them, what's the purpose of this message? What's the purpose? Be crystal clear, right? Call me now. Request a showing. It doesn't matter what it is, but what are you trying to get out of them? And you better tell them to do it. Because this is how you closed in a text message and an email. Hey, we just listed this property. You want to see it? Click here. Hey, we just listed this property, and then nothing else after that? What the hell are they going to do? You think they're going to reply, email you back? No, but they will click that link, right? Click here to find more details about this property. Give them some guidance, right? That's our job from beginning to end. Tell them what to do. That's your job. Tell them what to do. Next slide, please. Right, so nurturing, right? Kind of what we've been talking about, right? The entire time, right? most people aren't going to be ready on that first phone call or second or third or fourth, right? But you never stop nurturing, right? It's like a plant that you planted it. You need to fertilize it. You have to take care of it. You have to water it, right? You're giving it value. You're giving it nutrition. You're giving it sustenance. And when it's ready, it's going to bear fruit for you, right? But don't be annoying, right? What happens if you over-fertilize a plant? I think it dies. Most of my plants die anyway because I'm not good with them, but I'm really good at follow-up. So next slide. So you guys know all that. How will you nurture? Yeah, this one I need your help on, Irene. Don't recall this slide.
So, so what you can see here, 50% of the leads are qualified but not ready to buy. So technically, that's what it says on the first slide. Wherein sometimes they would say that they're ready, but basically they are never ready. So
yeah, so this is what we're already talking about. So yeah, these are all the things just kind of coming into one, right? You know, everything that you do, you know, you have to have a plan. And again, it doesn't matter what the plan is. All that matters is that you have a plan, but it should include a little bit of all of this, right? If you have a plan and it never gets you anywhere, then what was the point, right? Like, map it out. Day 1, day 3, day 5, day 7, day 9, right? Day 15, right? And your contacts should get a little bit farther out as time goes on, because you don't need to. In the beginning, you need to build that brand recognition, that name recognition. But as time goes on, they recognize your brand, they recognize your name, right? They know who you are. You don't need to blow them up so much, right? You just need to remind them that you're still there, right? I think it's more than 50% are qualified, not ready to buy. And I think probably even a higher number, 50% after the 5th touch. I feel like it's, I don't know, whoever InsideSalesIs.com, maybe that's their statistics, but I followed up with people up to 7 years, man. It took 7 years for me to get somebody to sell their house through me, but they finally did. And they still call me, right? And I actually still call them, right? I keep in touch with them because we did build a real, you know, relationship, right? We built a bond. So next slide. So with all of this, you need a CRM. You need a CRM, right? And everybody asks, well, what's the best CRM, right? That's like the #1 question when it comes to CRMs. What's the best one? Does anybody know the answer for what the best CRM is? No. It's the one that you use. It doesn't matter what CRM you use. Some of them do more, some of them do less, some of them cost more, some of them cost less, right? So #1, it needs to be in your budget. Some are free. I think Wise Agent is like super dirt cheap. Lion Desk, super dirt cheap, right? Follow Up Boss, like your mid-grade. Mojo, that can be super dirt cheap or super expensive. Chime and Sierra Interactive, super expensive, right? And the more it costs, usually the more they do. Sierra Interactive, the one that we use, you know, you can make phone calls through there. You can send the emails. You can put them in all those action plans. You can do all those things. You can send video text messages. You can text blast everybody. You pretty much do anything you needed to do, and that's why we like Sierra. Even if we don't use all of the features. We just learned about 6 months ago, there's features in there that we weren't even using. We didn't know they existed. Somebody called us and they were like, hey, you haven't used this. We're like, oh, now we do it, right? The e-alerts, we didn't know about those. Those are amazing. Those are amazing, the e-alerts. You should have e-alerts, and that drives them to your website. And now they recognize your brand and your name a little bit more, right? And the brand doesn't have to be Miranda Executive Realty or whatever your real estate company is. It should be your brand, right? It should be, what is your brand? Do you have a brand, right? When people think of this, do they think of you, right? What's your brand? You got to have a brand. You should have your own logo, right? I mean, it's great to promote your company, and, you know, we love it when you guys promote Miranda Executive Realty. Believe me, we do. And you should have your own brand and figure out what is your brand, right? When people think about you, what do they think about, right? What separates you from every other real estate agent out there, right? Why are you better? What do they think, right? Do you have a slogan? Do you have a tagline? Do you have anything, right? But going back, the CRM, you need a CRM, right? If you don't know which one to use, talk to us. We'll help you kind of work through it. We can go over pricing. We can go over all those different things. Next slide. All right, so far, does anybody have any questions? Anything to add? Any thoughts? No. All right, so KPI, while you're making your calls, there's things that you need to pay attention to. So we've broken them all down into the 5 C's, right? What are the 5 C's for your KPI? These are the things that while you're communicating with your lead, whether it's through call, text, email, you know, whatever it is, these are the numbers that you need to see. How many calls do you have to make? How many phone numbers do you have to dial before you make a contact, right? Because not every call is going to lead to an answer, right? And not every answer is going to lead to a contact. If you didn't get through your script, you didn't contact them. If they hung up on you, hey, this is Joe Miranda with Miranda Executive Realty, click, not a contact. You got to get through your script, get an answer. Now you got a contact. Cool. Great. We had a contact. We went through our five objectives, right? But you still have to get that to the next one, the consultation, right? If you don't set an appointment, if you didn't close them, then what was the point of the contact, right? So how many calls does it make to get a contact? How many contacts does it take to get an appointment? How many appointments do you have to go on before you get a contract? And how many contracts do you write to get a closing? Because if you've been doing real estate for any amount of time, you know every contract doesn't close, right? So maybe you need 10 calls to get 1 contact, 10 contacts to get an appointment, 3 appointments to get a contract, and 1.3 contracts to get to closing, right? Do that math backwards, right? 10 times 10 times 3 times 2, right? So 10 times 10, you need 100 calls to get your appointment, or 100 calls to get your 10 contacts to get your 1 appointment, right? 3 appointments to get that contract. You better get that next appointment, right? Now that you know your numbers, what do you do with them? Well, you make them better. How can you have a higher contact rate? Double dial, right? Right? Couldn't you, if somebody calls you, it's annoying, especially if it's a salesperson, but sometimes we don't know when we answer it. You see a number, it rings, you don't know it, you ignore it, calls you again. Is this an emergency? What is this? Maybe I should answer it. Right? You're going to get a higher contact rate that way because most people don't call twice. Right? Fortune favors the bold. Call it twice. Get a better contact rate. How can you get a higher appointment rate, right? How can you go from 10 contacts to get an appointment to 8? Maybe it's your closing style, right? Work on your closing style. Look at what is your closing style? Do you have a close? Right? Mr. Smith, we've been talking for about 25 minutes now, and it seems like we're really hitting it off here. I think naturally our next thing should be to set an appointment. I have some time tomorrow at 5 p.m. or, would Thursday be better at noon? Right? Throw it out there. What's your close? How do you close people? Do you have a close? Right? If you don't, you probably need that. Work on your closing rate. Contract rate. Are you closing for the contract? We looked at 5 houses today. Of those 5, it really seemed like 2 of these you really liked them. Which one of the 2 would you like to write? Would you like me to write? Which one of the 2 would you like to send an offer on? Right? Are you doing that, or you just say, okay, yeah, those 2. All right, see you later. I'll send you some more properties. Well, why? If they liked 2 of them, they should be writing an offer, shouldn't they? Naturally, if they don't like them, you're not going to push them to buy something they don't like. But look, we looked at 5. You really liked 2 of them. Why would you not want to write an offer on 1? What's wrong with these properties that you liked? Right? Figure it out. Maybe they're wasting your time. Better to learn that sooner rather than later. Closing rate. Sometimes that's just skill. Right? The ability to get your contract all the way through. because you're constantly negotiating with everybody. And if you think you're not negotiating with your own customer, you're lying to yourself, because you are negotiating with your customer as well. These are the numbers that you need to track. These are the numbers that you need to pay attention to. This is your KPI, key performance indicators. These are going to tell you how good or bad you are at any of these things, right? What's your closing rate? How many contacts do you need to get to a closing? Why does it take you 350 contacts to get one closing? Why is it now 175? Just not, you're not good enough, and you got to work on it. Practice your script, practice your closes, do it more. Stop being afraid to fail. You know, stop worrying about rejection. They don't know you. Doesn't matter, right? But if this is going to be a career, or if this is a career, these are the numbers you need to look at. And if you're not looking at them, then you don't know where you're at. You have no idea where you're at if you don't know these numbers. When I was dialing every day, when I was doing cold calls every day, I could tell you. I could tell you every single one of these numbers. Tell you how many phone calls I needed before I could get to a closing. And it was a lot. It was like, I don't know, I think it was like 900 and some dials.
Wow.
It was a lot, man. Like, but I knew my numbers, right? And then if you know all of these, you look at the worst numbers and say, how do I improve that? Just a little bit, right? What if you had a 1 degree change every day, right? What if you're traveling and every day you change your path by one degree, right? 1%, right? Pretty soon it's going to be a huge difference, right? You're going in a whole different direction, right? So 1 degree of change a day. It ain't got to be overwhelming. Don't change it all at once, right? Practice. Next slide. All right, so what's the difference between an amateur or a professional, right? An amateur will do something until they get it right, right? Amateur skateboarder practices a kickflip, gets it done one time. I did it. I'm going to go inside, drink a soda. We'll have a Pepsi and some pizza rolls, right? Well, you might come back out after that Pepsi and pizza rolls, can't do the kickflip. Why? Because he only did it until he got it right. Right? I'm going to practice free throws until finally I make 2 in a row. Get 2 in a row, boom, boom, I'm done. Walk away. Come back, you can't hit 2 in a row again. Why? Because you only did it until you got it right. A professional will do it until they can't get it wrong. Right? So are we professionals? Right? Do we do things until we can't get it wrong? Do we practice scripts? Do we practice our closings? Right? Are we speaking with people until whatever needs to be said is just naturally coming out? Or do we just do whatever we want until we finally get the result that we want? Right? If you're a professional, you're figuring out, well, where am I wrong? Right? A golfer practices his swing until he can't get it wrong. Because if they're off by that 1 degree that I'm talking about earlier, that ball is going to go in a whole different direction. Right? With that golf club, their swing, their hips, if they're too far in front of the ball, too far behind the ball, right? They have to be, everything has to move just right. Everything has to be just the right angle for that ball to do what they want it to do. And a professional golfer knows how that should look, and they're going to do swing after swing after swing after swing until finally they get it, right? And that's with one club. Then they got to do the same thing with another club and another club and another club, right? Because the driver, you swing different than a putter. Right? If you're driving, you're going to stand in a different position than if you're going to hit an iron. Right? They're different. So in all of these areas, you need to be a professional and be willing to make the mistakes to make yourself better. Right? Don't do it until you get it right. Oh, I did this. I got 1 closing. Now I don't have to do it no more. Well, that's how your lead sources dried up. Right? Because, oh, I don't have to do it no more. Yeah, I'm made. You're never made. Markets shift, things change, right? You need to always be looking for that next deal. You need to always be looking to make your numbers a little bit better. You got to make your swing a little bit better, hit the ball a little bit farther with a little bit less effort, right? Because a professional golfer doesn't exert as much effort to hit the ball as somebody who just steps out there and is just trying to beat the crap out of the ball, right? Because they know exactly how to swing. They know how to use leverage, right? Are we using leverage? Are we using drip campaigns? automated text messages, right? Are we using leverage, or are we just doing it all on our own? Right? If you don't have a CRM, you're not using leverage. You're doing all the work. You're an amateur, right? Because you can't track what you're doing. You can't see what you're doing. Oh, I call my leads out of my phone. Oh, cool. Where do you leave your notes at? Where do you remind yourself to follow up? Right? How do you know who you spoke with, Mr. or Mrs.? Right? It's amateur. Doing it through the CRM, working on your campaigns, working on your text messages. Wow, I got a really high response rate on this text message. I should make more text messages like this. Right? While I'm getting some bad feedback on this text message, I shouldn't write text messages like that anymore. Right? Be willing to fail. Any professional that is doing anything at any level has failed more often than they'd like to admit. The path of progression. Next slide. So what's the conclusion? None of this matters. It just matters that you do something, right? It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter who you call, expires, for sale by owners, geographic leads, just listed, just sold. Doesn't matter who you call. It just matters that you call them, right? It doesn't matter what your follow-up plan is. It just matters that you have a plan and that you use it. It doesn't matter what your brand is. It just matters that you have a brand, right? It doesn't matter how many times you have to follow up with somebody, whether it's 7 times or 7 years. It just matters that you follow up with them, right? Literally nothing matters. Nothing matters unless you do it. Because what's the difference, right? If you're sitting here in this training right now and you learn something but you don't implement it, right? What's the difference between not knowing it? If you know something, if you have knowledge and you don't use it, right? I know how to build a rocket ship. I could fly us to Mars, right? But I don't use that knowledge. I don't build a rocket ship. I don't fly us to Mars. Then I'm getting the same result as not knowing it, so why did I go out and learn it anyway? Right? Make that 1 degree of change. You don't know, this is a lot. This is a lot, right? This plan, what we do, the systems took us years. It's a lot, but just make 1 degree change, right? Do one thing just a little bit better. Take one thing from here and implement it and be a professional about it and keep doing it, right? If you don't have a CRM, I would recommend starting there and recommending learning how to use a CRM to its full capacity, right? That's the best place to start. If you have one and you're not using it, start using it. It's going to make your life easier, right? Put your notes in there. Schedule your follow-ups, right? Check your inbox, check your tasks. Do all these things. John Smith asked me to send him a CMA. I didn't write it down, so I forgot. Shoot, 3 days later. Should I still send him one? It's 3 days late. Well, you probably should, because you said you would, and that's integrity. But if you have a CRM to remind you, you work on a calendar, set up a calendar system, color code it, right? Prioritize, figure it out, because nothing more true than this, man. It doesn't matter what you do. You just got to do something. Literally doesn't matter. You just got to do it. You got to do it consistently over and over.